Right now, I am standing inside a home that fits in a parking space, and it is warm, and it is mine. There is a kettle on the little stove. There is a bed up in the loft where my daughter sleeps. Outside, it is cold, but in here, I am in my socks. This whole place rolls on four wheels, and the thing it is built on, the bones of everything you are looking at, was a rusted flatbed trailer that a man was about to cut up for scrap. I built this for $500. Every board, every screw, every inch of insulation came from things other people threw away or sold for almost nothing. That number is real. I kept every receipt in a coffee can because for a long time nobody believed me, and some days I did not believe me either. This is a true story, and it is mine, and I am telling you because somebody needs to hear that the bottom is not the end. Stay with me, because near the end, I am going to tell you about one free material I found stacked behind a roofing company that changed everything. The thing that finally kept the cold out when nothing else would. You do not need land. You do not need savings. I had a daughter, 2 trash bags of clothes, and $311 to my name. Let me take you back to the night it all started, because I want you to see exactly how far the climb was. I remember the smell of that night more than anything. We were sleeping in my car, a tan sedan with a check engine light that never turned off, parked behind a grocery store where the lot stayed lit all night. My daughter was 7. She had her cheek against the cold window, and her breath made a little circle of fog, and she kept wiping it clear so she could see the stars. I told her we were camping. She believed me because she wanted to. I sat in the driver's seat with my hands on the wheel of a car that was not moving, and I did the math over and over, and no matter how I did it, the numbers said we had nowhere to go. Now, let me tell you how I got there, because I did not start out reckless. I worked. I want you to understand that because the story people tell about women like me is that we did something wrong, that we were lazy, that we earned the gutter. None of that was true. I worked at a warehouse and a diner at the same time. Then I got sick, the kind of sick that does not let you stand for 10 hours, and I missed 3 shifts, and a missed shift in this country can unspool an entire life. I lost the diner job. Then I could not make rent. The landlord was not cruel about it. He just slid a paper under the door, and that paper was the end of the only walls we had. I went to the county for help. I sat in a plastic chair for 4 hours holding a number, 91, and they called 88 and then closed the window. The woman behind the glass did not look at me like a person. She looked at me like paperwork that was running late. She told me the shelter wait list was around 6 weeks and the family beds were full, and she said it the way you would tell somebody the bus is delayed. 6 weeks. With a child. In November. I walked out to my car and I felt something in me go very quiet and very hard. And I think that quiet hardness is the only reason we made it. So here is the first thing nobody tells you, and it is the first thing I want to hand you. I stopped waiting for a building with a roof to be given to me. I started looking at the world like a junkyard full of parts. That shift in my head cost nothing, and it was worth more than any check I ever got. Because once you stop waiting to be rescued, you start seeing what is already lying around, free, ignored, waiting. The idea came from a trailer. There was a man 2 streets over from where we parked who had an old flatbed utility trailer sitting in his side yard, the kind you tow behind a truck to haul a lawnmower. It had 2 flat tires and a coat of rust, the color of dried blood. It had been there so long that grass had grown up through the deck boards. I watched it for a week. Then I knocked on his door, and, I will be honest, my voice shook. I asked what he wanted for it. He laughed, not at me exactly, more at the trailer. He said he had been meaning to drag it to the scrapyard, but they would barely give him $40 for it. I offered him $60. I had counted it out in 1s and 5s in the car, so my hands would not shake when I paid. He took it, and he even threw in the 2 spare tires leaning against his fence. A lot of people would tell you that was a foolish way to spend $60 when you and your kid are sleeping in a car. I have heard it. I heard it from my own sister, who told me I should be putting that money toward a motel room for the night. But a motel room is gone in the morning. That trailer was the first thing I had owned in months that nobody could put a paper under and take away. A motel buys you 8 hours. The trailer was the floor of an entire life. That is the difference between surviving the night and building a way out. And once I understood it, I never looked back. But owning a rusty flatbed with flat tires is not a home, and winter was not waiting for me to figure it out. The temperature was already dropping below freezing at night. I had a trailer and no walls and no idea, really, how to make walls. And the next problem was bigger than the cold. It was where to even put the thing. You cannot just build a house in a grocery store parking lot. So I had to solve a problem that has nothing to do with hammers and everything to do with knowing the right people, and that is where the next door opened. There was a man named Dale who ran a small engine repair shop on the edge of town, fixing chainsaws and four-wheelers. I knew him a little because I used to bring him coffee from the diner. I towed my trailer there behind a friend's truck, and I asked Dale, straight out, if I could park it in the gravel lot behind his shop and work on it. I told him exactly what I was trying to do. I did not dress it up. I said I was living in my car with my little girl and I was going to turn this trailer into something we could live in, and I needed a flat piece of ground and an outlet I could run a cord to. Dale was quiet for a second. Then he said his daughter was about my age, and he handed me a key to the back gate. He charged me nothing. He said the electricity was on him as long as I did not run a welder all night. I want to stop here and say something to you directly, because I know who is watching this. If you are sitting there thinking this could never be you, that you do not have a Dale, that you do not have $60, that you are too far down to even start, this next part is for you specifically. I built the entire frame of this house out of wood I did not pay 1 cent for, and I am going to tell you exactly where it came from, because you can do this part this week, right now, no matter how broke you are. It came from pallets and packing crates. Every business that receives shipments has them stacked out back, and most of them pay to have them hauled away, which means they are thrilled when you take them. I went to furniture stores, hardware stores, a stone yard, a place that sold riding mowers. I learned to ask for the manager and to ask politely, and I learned one thing that doubled what I got. I asked for the heat-treated pallets, the ones stamped with the letters HT. Those are dried with heat instead of chemicals, so they are safe to bring inside and safe to burn. A pallet marked MB was treated with a chemical I did not want near my child, and I left those alone. In 2 weeks of asking, I had more than 60 pallets stacked behind Dale's shop. I pulled them apart with a flat bar and a hammer in the cold, and my hands bled through my gloves, and my daughter sat on a milk crate handing me the nails I pulled, dropping them in an old coffee can, one by one. We saved over 400 nails that way. That alone was $20 I did not have to spend. So now picture it. I have a free trailer for $60 and a mountain of free wood. People drove past Dale's lot and slowed down and stared, and some of them laughed. And one woman actually said, loud enough for me to hear, that it was a shame, a child living in a junk pile. I heard it, my daughter heard it, and I made a choice in that moment that I want to give to you too. I decided that their laughing was not about me. It was about them needing to believe that this could never happen to them, that people who end up where I was must have deserved it, because if I did not deserve it, then it could happen to anybody, including them. Their contempt was their own fear, wearing a mean face. I let them keep it. I had a wall to frame. But pallet wood is short and crooked and full of splits, and the first wall I built taught me a hard lesson. I framed it standing up, nice and proud, and the first real wind came through, and it racked sideways like a cardboard box because I had not braced it. I almost cried. I had spent 3 days on that wall. Here is what saved me, and it is the kind of thing you only learn by failing. I cut diagonal braces, corner to corner, and screwed them across the studs, and suddenly the wall went stiff as a door. Triangles. A square will fold flat, but a triangle cannot collapse without breaking. That one idea, free, just a way of cutting an angle, is the difference between a wall that stands in a storm and a pile of sticks. Nobody taught me that. The wind taught me that. Now the walls were up, 4 of them, bolted down through the trailer deck with brackets I bought for $11, and I stood inside that frame for the first time at night, with the wind whistling through every gap, and I could see my breath, and I understood the real enemy was not rain, and it was not thieves. It was cold. Cold is what kills people who live the way I was living. And solving the cold for almost no money was the hardest problem I faced, and it is the one that nearly broke me before it saved me. And if that shift in thinking speaks to you, I want to point you towards something that can take you even further. Everything I learned through this build, The sourcing, the sequencing, the mistakes I made so you do not have to, I put into a book called First Shelter, and there is a second volume called Second Shelter that picks up where this story leaves off. If you want the complete roadmap in one place, both are combined in the full blueprint. You can find all of them linked in the description below. Now, back to the build because the walls were up and the real enemy was waiting. Let me tell you how serious the cold is because I did not understand it until I read about it later. Your body loses heat to a cold surface 25 times faster than to cold air. That means a thin wall with no insulation is not just chilly, it actively pulls the warmth out of you while you sleep. The reports on cold weather deaths among people without housing are not gentle reading. People do not freeze only when it is far below zero. They die in temperatures in the 40s when they are wet and have nothing between them and a cold surface. I had a child. I could not get this wrong. I would lie awake doing the arithmetic of degrees the way other mothers count sheep. My first attempt was a disaster, and I am telling you so you skip it. I stuffed the wall cavities with old clothes and blankets I got from a donation bin. It made sense in my head. Cloth is warm, right? But fabric holds moisture, and moisture is the thing that will kill you. Within 2 weeks, the inside of those walls was damp, and then it smelled, and I knew if I closed it up, I would be growing black mold 3 inches from my daughter's pillow. I tore it all out. A whole week of work in the trash. I sat on the trailer deck with wet rags around me, and I genuinely thought maybe the woman in the parking lot was right. Maybe this was just a junk pile and I was a fool. But I did not have the option of quitting, because quitting meant the car again, and the car meant winter, and winter meant I might not get my daughter to spring. So I did the only thing I could. I started reading everything I could find at the public library, where it was warm and free and nobody asked why we were there all day. I sat with my daughter doing her homework next to me, and I read about how real houses keep heat in. And that is where I learned the word that changed everything: R value. It is just a number that tells you how well a material resists heat moving through it. The higher the number, the warmer you stay. And the material with the best R value for the least money was not blankets and not the pink fluffy stuff they sell at the store. It was rigid foam board. And the best rigid foam, the kind that gives you around 6 points of R value for every single inch, is something the construction world throws away by the truckload. This is the secret I promised you at the start, and I need you to really hear it, because it is the thing that turned a cold box into a home. Commercial roofing companies, the crews that put flat roofs on stores and warehouses, use thick sheets of a rigid foam called polyiso. Every job leaves them with cutoffs and damaged boards and torn up old sheets from tear-offs, and they pay by the ton to dump it in a landfill. It is a cost to them, which means when you show up and offer to take it off their hands, you are not begging, you are doing them a favor. I found a roofing company by driving past their yard and seeing a dumpster heaped with the stuff. I went into the office and I will tell you my heart was pounding because asking for help never stops being hard. I asked the man at the desk if I could take some of the foam they were throwing out. He looked at me like I had asked to take his trash, which is exactly what I had asked. He said, "Take as much as you want, lady. You are saving me the dump fee." I filled my friend's truck 3 times. I got sheets 2 inches thick, some of them 4 feet by 8 feet, barely a mark on them. If I had bought that new, it would have cost me hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I paid nothing. I paid for the gas in the truck and a case of soda for my friend who drove. I cut that foam to fit snug between every stud with an old bread knife, the serrated kind, which slides through it like butter. I sealed every seam with a roll of foil tape. I did the floor first, 2 layers, because remember, cold comes up through the floor faster than anywhere, that is, the surface stealing your heat 25 times over, then the walls, then the ceiling. And the night I finished the last panel, something happened that I will never forget as long as I live. I lit my little secondhand propane heater, the small one I paid $15 for at a yard sale, and I let it run for 20 minutes. And the walls held the heat. For the first time in months, I took my coat off indoors. My daughter took her gloves off and pressed her bare hand flat against the wall and looked up at me and said, "Mama, it is not cold." I had to turn around so she would not see my face. It got down into the low 20s that night, outside. Inside, with one small heater, it stayed near 68 degrees. I checked it with a thermometer I bought for $2 because I did not believe it myself. 68 degrees, from garbage, from foam a man was paying to throw in a hole in the ground. That is the whole secret. The world is throwing away the exact thing that could keep you alive, and it is throwing it away for free, and almost nobody knows to ask. But warmth was not the finish line, because warm air with nowhere to go turns to water, and water was still the thing trying to kill me. This is the mistake that takes people who get this far and ruins them, and I want to save you from it. When you seal a small space up tight, and you breathe in it and you run a heater in it, the moisture from your own breath and the flame has nowhere to escape, and it collects on the coldest surfaces and drips. I learned this the hard way when I found water beading on the inside of my one window, so I did two things that cost almost nothing. I cut two small vents, one low on one wall and one high on the opposite wall, and covered them with scraps of screen so the air could move through slowly even when everything was shut. And I made sure my heater was the kind rated for indoors, cross ventilation, a high vent and a low vent. That little bit of moving air is the difference between a dry, safe home and slowly soaking everything you own. Now let me tell you about the door and the window, because this is where I want you to see that dignity matters as much as survival. I did not want a box. I wanted a home my daughter would not be ashamed to bring a friend to. The window came from a construction site dumpster, a perfectly good double-pane window the crew had ordered in the wrong size. It cost me nothing and a torn sleeve climbing in after it. The door I built from the straightest pallet boards I had, sanded down, and I found an old brass knob at a thrift store for $3 that I polished until it shined like it mattered, because it did matter. I painted the outside of the whole trailer a soft sage green with mist-tinted paint from the hardware store. The cans somebody returned because the color came out wrong, sold to me for $5 a gallon. 2 gallons. $10 to make a junk pile look like a cottage. People stopped laughing when I painted it. That is a fact. The same people who slowed down to stare now slowed down to look, and that is a different kind of slowing down. Let me add it all up for you, because I promised you the number is real. The trailer, $60. The brackets and bolts, around $40. The screws, because pallet nails would only take me so far, about $35. The foam, free. The window, free. The wood, free. The foil tape, $18. The heater, $15. The thrift store knob, $3. The paint, $10. A small camp stove and a propane bottle, around $35. A secondhand solar panel and a used deep cycle battery I found through an online ad. The biggest single splurge, $90. And that gave us light and a way to charge a phone without paying anyone. A little roll of vinyl flooring, a remnant, $12. Caulk and odds and ends, the rest. It came to just under $500 spread across more than 2 months. Not in one lump. $20 here, gas money there, all of it from a woman who started with $311 and a child in a car. I know what some of you are thinking, because I thought it too. You are thinking you do not have a Dale with a back lot, you do not have a friend with a truck, you do not have the strength in your hands. So, let me speak just to you for a moment, the one who feels too far gone for any of this. You do not have to build the whole thing this week. You have to do one thing this week. Go ask one business for their pallets, just one. Or go find out where your nearest roofing company dumps its scrap. You are not asking for charity. You are taking a cost off their hands. The first knock is the hardest thing in the entire build, harder than any wall, because the first knock is where you decide you are still worth a roof. Everything after that is just cutting and screwing. I promise you the materials are out there, sitting in dumpsters in your own town, right now, tonight. There is one more thing I want to give you, the smallest, cheapest trick, and it is the one that made our first deep winter survivable. After all that foam, there were still cold spots where the heat leaked out, and I could not afford more. So I hung heavy-moving blankets, the quilted gray kind, on the inside of the coldest wall and across the door at night, the way people in old farmhouses hung quilts against drafts 100 years ago. I got 6 of them from a moving company that sells off their torn ones for $2 each, $12. They trapped a still layer of air against the wall, and they cut the last of the draft, and they made the inside feel soft instead of hard. A still layer of air is one of the best insulators there is, and it is almost free. That is the kind of thing the people who look down on me never had to learn, and it is the kind of thing that keeps a child warm when the wind is screaming outside. We lived in that trailer for 3 winters. My daughter learned to read at that little fold-down table I built from a crate lid. I saved, slowly, with the rent money. I was no longer hemorrhaging, and eventually we moved into a small rented house with a real foundation. But here is the thing nobody warned me about. I missed the trailer. I still have it. It is parked behind us right now, warm, ready, paid for, ours. The one thing in this world that no landlord and no county window and no paper slid under a door can ever take from me again. It is not a junk pile. It never was. It was the floor of an entire life, and I built it with bleeding hands and a 7-year-old handing me nails. So if you take one thing from me, take this. They will tell you that you ended up here because you deserved it, and that you cannot climb out without money you do not have. They are wrong on both counts, and now you know exactly how I proved it. The world throws away everything you need to live. You only have to be willing to knock and bend and learn from the wind. I want to hear from you, so tell me this. If you were starting tomorrow with almost nothing, what is the first thing you would go looking for? The pallets, or the foam, or the trailer? And where in the world are you watching me from right now? Leave it in the comments, because I read them, and because someone scrolling past who feels as low as I once felt needs to see that they are not alone in this. If you believe a person can be written off and still build something warm and good in their own, then come with me, subscribe, and stay, because this is a place for people who refuse to be thrown away. Next time, I am going to show you how a woman turned an abandoned camper somebody left rotting in a field into a home with running water for less than the cost of 1 month's rent. You will not believe where she found the water tank. I will see you there.